Have you started speedrunning Crash Bash and realized the game is really hard? Did you watch the world record video and simply copy the route used there? Have you had passing thoughts like, this game may not be for me, or just, nope? Are you trying to get your time below 2 hours and 25 minutes? If you answered yes to any of these questions, stay tuned. This is LogicPQ, and we are going to cover different Crash Bash beginner routes that will help you achieve a better time in no time at all. If you haven't watched It's Elite's new world record video, well, you should, because it is awesome. And don't forget to subscribe to his YouTube and follow his Twitch. But also, you may be one of the poor new Bash runners who thought it was a good idea to copy his route. There is nothing wrong with throwing yourself into the shark pit and trying to learn the hardest route from the start, but you will struggle for a while before you really get the hang of Bash's mechanics, and it may feel extremely punishing or even impossible at times. That is why I have collaborated with other members of the Bash community to determine some easier routes that slowly build up to faster gems and crystals. Let's look at the first beginner route, which is by far the easiest, but also objectively the slowest due to sacrificing speed for lower chance of failure. This route chooses to avoid as many polar gems and crystals as possible, as these are often very difficult for beginners. In Warp 1, you will see two major differences already from Elite's route, which is Crash Ball Gem and Pogo Painter Crystal. Crash Ball Gem is a replacement for Melt Panic Gem, and it takes about 2 minutes to complete. Still, Crash Ball Gem is far easier than Melt Panic Gem. The most important thing to practice to prevent failures here is to use the R1 or L1 shoulder button at all times to boost the speed at which your ballistics cart moves. This route incorporates more ballistics levels that aren't in Elite's route, and your goal in doing this easier route should be to master ballistic style levels. So make sure to always press R1 while playing these in order to get used to moving at the higher speed. You may perform worse at first, but eventually you will be much better off for the effort. Secondly, Pogo Painter Crystal takes 90 seconds to complete, and can be failed by stepping on a mushroom. This level was chosen as a replacement for Tilt Panic Crystal, but that doesn't mean it is a walk in the park. Mushrooms spawn on the pogo tiles that instantly cause failure, and the quick and dirty strategy for this level is to try and stay near the bottom of the screen. This doesn't mean you should always be at the bottom, but the longer you are hanging out at the bottom of the screen, the better. This is because you have better visibility of the tiles here, versus while at the top of the screen. AI character models can easily blind you to a spawning mushroom at the top of the screen. Don't avoid shoes while playing the crystal. Your goal should be to get 120 or more points as fast as you can so that you can just wait the timer out at the end without risk of failure. One nice aspect of doing this crystal is that it is early in the run, so if you fail it once, it isn't as big of a deal to reset here. If I manage to get an early lead in this crystal, then I usually just press directions one at a time to have slower, more calculated movement, to further avoid risk of failure. Fails are bound to happen though, and it is okay to make mistakes as long as you are trying to learn from them. Remember this idea as we get into the harder warps, because even the best runners have fails in their PBs. In Warp 2, this route includes Beach Ball Gem instead of Drain Bash Gem. Also, Tilt Panic Crystal was replaced by Pogo Painter Crystal, as discussed in the Warp 1 section. Beach Ball Gem has similar strategy to Crash Ball Gem, so make sure you are using R1 or L1 for speed. Secondly, focus more on not letting balls into your goal rather than playing for speed. As a beginner, your goal in this level should be to develop awareness of each ball on the screen. If the character across from you has balls magnetized to their cart, they are going to shoot at you eventually. Prepare yourself for when they shoot. Since you start off with less points than your opponents, focus on not failing first. Faster strategies for Beach Ball will be talked about in a ballistics specific video. Moving on to Warp 3. This route omits Melt Panic Gem and Crystal in favor of Crash Ball Gem, as already discussed, and Drain Bash Crystal. To give a solid piece of advice, just because you aren't doing these gems and crystals in your route doesn't mean you shouldn't practice them regularly. If you want to get in the top 10 of any percent for Crash Bash, You will need to eventually learn these gems and crystals being omitted in this route, so make sure to set some time aside every now and then to practice these levels. Lastly, in Wart 4, this route omits Manic Panic Gem and Drain Bash Gem, and includes Drain Bash Crystal and Ring Ding Gem in replacement. Manic Panic Gem and Drain Bash Gem are far too difficult and RNG based to be worth doing at the beginner level. I didn't start doing these gems until I had achieved a 2-hour and 5-minute any percent time, just for an example. Drain Bash Crystal has RNG in it, but it is far easier than Melt Panic Crystal. The general strategy for Drain Bash Crystal is to focus on TNTs in the nearest question mark boxes. TNTs and the power-ups deal way more damage than the normal boxes. Once you get the fight to a one-on-one, stay near the opponent AI and kick them before they reach a question mark box. Then steal the box for yourself. Another way to do this strategy is to allow the opponent AI to open the question mark box for you, then you can jump where the power-up is and steal it for yourself before it gets to the AI. Other tips and tricks will be covered in future videos. Ring Ding Gem has RNG in it as well, but it is far less than the gem it replaces, Manic Panic Gem. The best advice for Ring Ding Gem is to focus more on the black balloons and question mark boxes. This doesn't mean completely disregard your color balloons, but you won't be able to win if you don't go for black balloons and the power-ups. Your goal is to get a vacuum and a black balloon that changes all of the balloons your color at the same time. This will give you a very fast victory. But one other thing you will notice right away while playing this game on NTSC-U is that it is completely broken. The green and blue player are on a team together, and you are on red's team, so it is sometimes useful to allow the red player to score points and to focus on kicking green and blue, when possible. The only difference between this beginner route and the beginner route we previously discussed is Tilt Panic Crystal is added in place of Metal Fox Crystal. I would not advise switching to this beginner route unless Metal Fox Crystal is giving you a lot of trouble. Tilt Crystal is certainly still very difficult though, and I will once again remind new players to be practicing levels like Tilt Crystal and Metal Fox Crystal regularly in order to improve at them. The strategy for a beginner on Tilt Crystal is to try and avoid too much conflict with the AI, and go for the power-ups whenever they come. If you decide to put Tilt Crystal in your route, definitely try to learn how to counter push. Counter pushing is simply pushing shortly after the AI pushes you. Counter push timings are difficult, especially on Tilt Crystal when the stage is moving around a lot and the AI are heavy as hell. Counter pushing will be discussed further in a future video discussing polar levels. This beginner route is a true improvement over the previous two discussed in terms of theoretical best time on each level, as it includes both Metal Fox Crystal and Tilt Crystal, and eliminates Pogo Painter Crystal. Tilt Crystal and Metal Fox Crystal both have great potential to be much faster than Pogo Painter Crystal, but require far more practice and knowledge to be consistent at. Pogo Painter Crystal is restricted to being 1 minute and 30 seconds no matter what, while both Tilt Crystal and Metal Fox Crystal can easily be finished in 45 seconds or less. Once you as a runner feel more capable on both the polar and the tank levels, definitely consider switching to this route to try and improve your overall time. This final route to be discussed is the fastest beginner route, but requires that you feel confident in polar levels. Beach Ball Gem is replaced with Melt Panic Gem. In order to be consistent at Melt Panic Gem, you will need to be decent at counter pushing. This change is a huge improvement once again because Melt Gem can be as fast as 10 seconds, even faster in some cases, while Beach Ball Gem takes about 2 minutes. Once you feel comfortable running this final beginner route, you may want to consider more difficult intermediate routes that ramp the difficulty up further in the name of speed. A decent time with this last beginner route would be 2 hours and 20 minutes or faster. I want to take one step back and drive home the importance of practicing hard levels even if they aren't in your route yet. Crash Bash is a very hard game, and sometimes brutally unfair to the player. Another thing to keep in mind is that Crash Bash is not only RNG, not even close to be honest. A good player can always turn the tide on bad RNG in their favor, usually at the cost of some time. It is to your advantage to learn and practice every technique you can in order to get the odds of a good run happening back in your favor. Before I do runs every day, I set aside about 20 minutes to practice certain levels. I always do Melt Panic Trophy, Gem, and Crystal at least once, usually doing about 5 or 6 extra Crystal rounds to get the feel for it again. Then I go to Wart 4 and practice Manic Panic Gem until I feel comfortable no matter the RNG the game gives to me. Lastly, I always do an Oxide 2 attempt. Sometimes I will practice other levels such as Metal Fox Crystal, but you get the idea. Before doing runs every day, if you have the time, it would be very beneficial to make a habit of doing some type of practice regimen. I strongly believe that this is the reason I was able to improve fairly quick. To give you some idea, I have probably spent 30 or more hours in just Manic Panic Gem alone to try and master it. There is no such thing as too much practice, so don't get discouraged if you can't quite get the run you have been seeking after. If you are new to Bash speedrunning, definitely check out my How to Start Speedrunning Crash Bash Any Percent video if you haven't already. Leave a comment if you like a particular route here or if you thought the tips and tricks were useful. Thanks for watching.